Welcome to this panel about the importance of diversity in technology. So this is a wide-ranging and holistic discussion about diversity and the importance of diversity in tech. We'll primarily be focusing on innovation, inclusion, productivity, and of course, overall business success. We'll have about 10 minutes after each of our panelists have answered their questions to have a bit of Q&A. So do write down any questions that you do have. I'd like to introduce our all-star cast. Thank you all for agreeing to be part of this. We've got Opara-Nadi, who is our head of developer experience and operational excellence at 10x. We have the phenomenal Hasani Jess, who works as CTO of SimplyBusiness, as well as non-executive director of the Settle Group. We have Beth Gaković, who is a freelance software engineer and who was former curriculum lead at Futureproof Academy. We've got Shyam Odedra. You're going to have to help me on that.
I'll do it later.
Thank you so much. Who's Director of Engineering at Redkite. And last, but certainly not least, we have Cherril Joseph, who is Senior DE&I Program Manager at Arm. Thank you very much for all agreeing to be here. Now that's out of the way, let's start with our very first question. For you, Hasani, what approaches has... before we begin, why don't you all introduce yourselves?
Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, go on, knock yourself out.
Hi, Codebar. Delighted to be here. As I said before, I'm Hasani Jess, CTO at SimplyBusiness and a board member at Settle Group. And my career, I started out as one of you guys, so I do come from an engineering background. Any Java developers here? There's a few of us left behind.
I'm so sorry.
So I started off my career in Java, just like you guys, learning the fundamentals and the basics. And I've gone through that engineering path through .NET and at SB. We are a Ruby house. So it's really just encouraging. A language is a language. I was talking to Shyam in one of the breaks not Shyam, Erdink. Erdink was one of the coaches about learning languages. Once you learn one, the others are really straightforward. The frameworks is where the hard stuff is, right? So learning the different frameworks. So I've been in technology for a couple of decades and a half now, so I'm getting grey and old in technology, but I've loved it. It's been a fantastic journey. And maybe we'll get into it later on in the conversation about the role that diversity plays in our industry. I know some of you may have seen various statistics on diversity and how diverse tech is or not. Now, in a forum like this, you're all engineers, and I'll be very open and honest. Diversity in engineering is very low. Diversity in tech, you'll see bigger numbers, 20, 30%, etc. People talk about diversity, and that is excellent. That's been growing over the years. In engineering, if you look at the Stack Overflow diversity numbers, they're very, very low. So there's a lot of work to be done there, and that's why, for me personally, things like Codebar, Rails Girls, Coding Black Females, all these other groups are so important to make a shift in there. So that's why I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Oge up next.
Cool, awesome. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 10x on Codebar. I'm Opara-Nadi. I head developer experience and operational excellence at 10x. When Jonathan was talking about what he does, where's Jonathan, who just came off? I was thinking, there you are. I was thinking, I agree with you on 2 points. One, that is very bright. And secondly, my job is about making engineers' lives easier. So my colleagues are my internal clients, my internal customers. What do? We not only provide products and capabilities for them to be able to do their work better, but we also focus on the culture within engineering. So to that point, I'm the chairperson for the Women Engineering at 10x. And yes, you're very right. When we talk about diversity in tech or women in tech, for example, yeah, numbers could be better, but when you look at women in engineering, it's like very, very sporadic pockets, really. So part of my mission at 10x is, whilst making our colleagues' lives easier to deliver for our customers, is also about lifting the profile of women in engineering, giving them the tools, doing the coaching, and giving them the capabilities to progress their careers in and out of 10x.
Thank you very much. That's absolutely brilliant. Beth.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. My name is Beth, as everyone's just said a million times, and I up until November last year, I was the curriculum lead at a place called Futureproof. It's now been rebranded as Futureproof Academy. I'm sure it's still brilliant. And there I was doing, I'd come up as a trainer. I'm a career changer myself, and I was helping other people get there as well. And I had the opportunity in the last year to do R&D on a new type of curriculum. And that was just fascinating. We got to speak to lots of industry leaders from all sorts of areas and be like, hey, what do you actually need? Because I know it's not everyone to know how to make a React app. It's handy, but there's other skills that you need to know on day one. And that was amazing. My tagline on the internet is circus musician who ran away with coders. So I'm just going to leave that there. And to invite questions.
We'll definitely be digging into that quite a bit later. Shyam?
Hi everyone, it's Shyam Odedra.
I am so sorry.
There it is. I'm Director of Engineering at Redkite. I've had a pretty traditional, then non-traditional, then traditional entry into tech. So I kind of started along Java, .NET, C. But as a kid, I always wanted to be an airline pilot. So after 6 years in software, I was like, no, I'm going to go and retrain as a pilot. Again, an industry which really suffers, probably even more than tech anyway, in terms of diversity, but was thankfully sponsored by an airline, enjoyed it. I used to work in a lot of the back scenes tech side of things while also flying. COVID hit. I was like, I need to get back to tech. That's the safe haven. Pivoted back into a data career, and that's what we do at Redkite. We're a data consultancy, so we help other organizations with their data. So again, we don't know where that company will be, what sector it will be. So having that diverse workforce means that we can get the best successful outcomes for our clients. And I think pre-COVID, we were 30 people. Now we're 400. So kind of managing that growth over the last few years has been, quite the challenge, but mostly fun, I'd say.
It's brilliant. And last but not least, Cherril.
And not least, thank you.
Most
Hello, I'm
definitely.
Cherril Joseph. I have no technical background. I feel like an imposter here, but what I do bring, hopefully, is some insights into diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is my role. And I work at a large technology company, Arm. And if you haven't heard of Arm, we design product, IP product for some of our massive clients, such as Apple and Samsung. So I've come into this environment, which is amazing, and it's really great to see all your faces and hear your stories. Excited to give you some perspectives of what the challenges are of DE&I in a technology company, what some of the things you're facing will be, and hopefully to give you a bit of a ray of hope and light that things are changing and there are some policies and ways forward. So let's dig into that a bit more in a bit.
Lovely. Let's start with you, Hasani. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry.
Happy to.
So you work at SimplyBusiness
Indeed.
As a CTO, and obviously you've mentioned that diversity in engineering is very, very low. Well, what approaches to inclusion has SimplyBusiness in particular taken, and how effective has it been?
Yeah, so for us, when I joined 5 years ago, a central part of our technology strategy was changed to be authentic diversity. Now, for me, that's quite straightforward because I'm part of that tribe of being a minority in the industry. But our focus, my decision was to focus on women representation. And so our focus at the time when I joined, SB was always a brilliant business, and they were already market leading in terms of their representation. They were around 16% in the engineering team. But our focus was to get to 30 plus. That's what we wanted. Okay, our starting point 30 plus. And my thinking, many of you may have heard of this guy called Obama. And he talked about the rising tide raising all ships. So my focus was, if we focus on making things straightforward and better for women technologists, that would raise the tide for everybody else. And it was much less controversial to focus on that demographic than some of the others that could be a bit more problematic. So we did a number of different changes. A lot of them Jonathan actually talked about in his sponsorship talk. But the real focus for me was, it does take time. It does take leadership sponsorship. And that perseverance is really, really important. Many people think, okay, if we run a program, we get codebar to come and do a session at our office, ta-da, problem solved. No. It does take time. It does take a lot of effort. I know some of the other panelists are going to be talking about that as well. But we did run a number of boot camps. We really invested a lot in our mentorship program, as well, but our apprenticeship program. We won a diversity award the other day for our apprenticeship scheme, which was focused on our contact center. So I'll tell you this one story. Our contact center is about 50-50 men and women. So I thought, okay, we're going to go there and I'm going to steal all their people into our apprenticeship program. And I was really sad, actually, because we ran a number of coding exercises, and they were about 50-50. But then when it came to the actual application for the apprenticeship schemes, only 2 women applied. Out of, we had about 15 applications from our contact center. So one, I was a bit disappointed. There's only 17 applications. I thought all of them would want to join tech. And we had about 80 people join the coding club and stuff like that, but we only had 18. So I was a bit frustrated with that. But also there was only a couple of women who also applied for that scheme, which again just goes to that perseverance piece. Because even though we'd done the road shows and we talked about it, there was still that perception, okay, it's not for me. When we ran it the next year, it was a completely different kettle of fish. We did get a 50-50% application from women. And we also partnered with other companies. So the one thing I would say to any leaders, one thing I've learned over the years is sometimes as a leader, we want to make a change. We want to make a difference. We want to move the needle. But we don't have the skills. We don't have the networks. We don't always have the ability. So that's why we partner with the code bars. That's why we partner with the Coding Black Females. That's why we partner with the experts who do connect with you all, and we can support them to do fantastic work. So that's been something that we found very successful, is partnering with people who need that support. And also having to change and shift the culture internally to make sure that it's comfortable for everyone.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that at all? Nobody want to... go on.
I'll chime in. I mean, I love the idea of partnerships, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. But also, and I think it's really fundamental and important to understand that how we can get talent in the pipeline. So we do work on retention and obviously keeping the talent, but getting talent into that pipeline is really important. And diverse candidates, that's one of our major challenges within the tech industry, and certainly within ARM, how our talent acquisition works, how we encourage and attract talent. So I'd love to get ideas as we go through this, if anyone has them, of what is it you look for when you look to a company to apply for? How do we attract talent? And maybe partnering with some of the companies like, or the institutions like CodeBar, we can really understand that a bit more and hopefully adapt our processes in talent attraction to get more diverse candidates in.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to Oge. You've mentioned that you manage lots of, or you're part of the diversity effort here at 10x Banking. So what tools and what techniques do 10x use to measure that diversity and to measure that inclusion?
Okay, cool. Thank you. So 10x is, I guess, reasonably young. We're 5-6 years old. And when we started off, it was a handful of people. This was pre-COVID. Everybody was in the office. So you come into the office and you see your colleagues and you saw everybody that was at 10x. So we spent, quite maybe too many months judging our diversity based on who we saw in the office, right? So, okay, I come in, I look around, and a couple of women, a couple of men, Bob's your uncle. But then we grew, right? We went from startup to scale up really quickly. We were recruiting over a short period of time, and it became very, very obvious that we cannot just rely on assumptions. We cannot rely on, how people present. We cannot rely on what we think is the makeup of our organization. So one of the first things that we did was, first of all, start to talk about it, right? Identify the problem, name the problem, and begin to talk about it a bit more openly. And that's where some of our networks were born. So we had the Black Professionals Network come out of that. We had the Women and Friends and the Women in Engineering come out of those conversations. But most importantly, the formal EDI committee that I'm a member of. So when we sat back and looked at this, we thought, right, obviously this is not going to work, but it cannot be work that's done on the periphery. And what I love about 10X compared to other organizations I've worked with was it wasn't an effort on the side along with the business. So we immediately became very much partnered with our internal HR department, our recruitment. And the first things that we worked on was actually putting in a system in place, a proper HR system in place that would allow our colleagues share this identifying information, identifying data. Now, that happened over a year ago, and the initial uptake, because this is voluntarily, was about 30%, which is fine. I'm also the person who, when I'm filling out a form and it gets to the bottom and says, I'm like, oh, that's optional, I don't need to do that. So what we've then started doing is, now that we've had that system in place for over a year, is now through the networks engaging our colleagues to say, here are the things that we've done with the data that you've provided. Yes, the data is not 100% accurate, but it's giving us a way to go, this is what matters to our colleagues. These are the colleagues that we have. These are how they present. These are the things that they care about. And through that, we've then started to do other initiatives that will allow people to be a bit more forthcoming about what is effectively sensitive information about themselves. So that's one of the many things. Now, partnerships as well means that we know that the talent pool that we're looking at, like what we're doing here, is from a diverse group. So we're not going, it's only people from this educational institution, or it's only people from this experience, for example. So we're looking at a much wider talent pool. The other thing that we do as well is we haven't gotten to the point of complete anonymizing our applications, but in the system that we use to take in potential candidates, we also give the people option to give us that information if they find it okay, if they find it comfortable. What that means is that when we actually look at, holistically over a period or a quarter, the applications that are coming in, we can course correct and say, even though we've done things like change the language in our applications, we've done things like change the way that we interview. So for example, we interview less on subjective decisions, we interview with scorecards so that we know that we're assessing people based on their skills as opposed to other things that we don't realize our unconscious biases lead us to. We trying to get that data in from every aspect so that we can go, actually, in this quarter, yes, we did take in X number of people, but also it's not skewed in the direction that we want, so we can then intentionally do things to change that. I've been talking to colleagues within the organization before this, because obviously I knew that this was coming up, and I was asking them, what has it meant to you, even just the fact that we asked for this data. And a lot of the responses always come back to say that collecting the data means that when we set organizational level OKRs, our colleagues believe in what we set because it's data driven. So we're not just saying we want to increase this by X, by Y. We're actually saying, here are the results of what we've done so far. Here are the results of the data we have so far. And based on that, at organizational level, our drive is to move the needle in one word or one direction or another. So in summary, it's about data gathering. It's about data gathering in a way that gives people the confidence that the data is being used in a meaningful way. It's about reflecting on what the data shows us. It's about using our internal networks, our own colleagues, our own partnerships with other organizations to further what we believe is the right direction to go in.
That's very important, actually. And I've noticed two big things from the first two panelists, and we'll be touching on data a lot more with you, Cherril. But I've noticed that it's data, and it's also the pipeline of candidates. Because if you have the data, you can make the decisions, and the people within your organization can trust that you're pushing, or you're not pushing blindly, and you're moving in a positive direction based on actual evidence. But in addition to that, you can't hit someone over the head with a cricket bat and stick them in the back of your van and force them to apply for your company. You need to make your company attractive.
Yes.
And the way that you do that is obviously by having the data that says this particular demographic group is not applying to our company. Why is that? Is it the language that we use? Is it the fact that they're not getting through the phone screen? Is it the fact that we're not even targeting them with respect to job advertisements and interviews?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we improve that, or how can we improve that intake?
It's almost like you've been in the EDI meetings that have been like,
Well,
these are word for word the questions that we have asked, and these are word for word the driving factors that have, made us do things that we've done today and continue to do.
I cannot confirm nor deny whether I have bugged your office. I'm going to get in so much legal trouble. Beth, hello. Again. Hi. You are the circus musician who ran away with the coders,
Yeah,
as you said. And I'm gonna force you to elaborate a bit on that. You yourself have described your career path as, and I quote, a bit squiggly. So how has that non-traditional background helped you in your career, and what transferable skills have you learned?
Yeah, so I say a bit squiggly. It's very squiggly, really. I'm not going to make it an autobiography, but essentially, I have a degree in playing the recorder, which obviously leads to a job in the circus. And then I realised that I really wanted to be using my brain slightly differently. The nice thing about circus is that you get a lot of time to sit in your caravan thinking about life and watching a lot of Netflix. And eventually I ran out of Netflix. So I started studying some coding, some free courses online. And then the scene that was starting to get really big then, that was when boot camps were really sort of starting to get their ground. And I was very lucky to be swept up with that, and they allowed me to stay in their industry for quite a number of years as a coach and a trainer, and then helping other people get into that, which was amazing. But I've certainly been other places around from that. And what I'm really enjoying about the tech industry is that it's allowing me to be squiggly, but within it. So I'm probably in a similar position to quite a lot of you at the moment. I'm doing a career change, but I'm staying in tech. But within tech, there's a million things you can do. It's amazing. So I'm going very much from a sort of research or training ed tech area, and now I'm ready to go and do what I've been helping other people get into. I'm ready to go and get my hands dirty, and I've had the chance to do smaller things. I've done work with charities. Charities need help. They want your help, and you will gain a lot of experience and feel amazing doing it. So please go and do that. That's where I've got most of my experience. And I just wanted to touch, respond to what you guys have been saying a bit, because it's really scary when you're filling in a form and none of those boxes really fit. And there's and I can fit into a lot of boxes. Like, I'm very aware that there's a lot of boxes for me on those forms, but there's some which aren't there, and it's really scary when they're not. But that in itself is a blocker. So that's why I think panels like this are really, really important. Like, it's amazing once you get into a company and they've got these amazing initiatives on. Are they doing as much as they say they do? Okay, well, that's a conversation for another day. But the actual really tricky thing is giving people the confidence to know that you can fill in that form, you can give over that information, and that's not going to be used against you. It's not going to be used in a way where assumptions are made about you. So whether that's from what you've been doing up until this point, whether it's like any disabilities you have, whether it's your ethnicity or anything, of course I'm not going to give you that information if I think you're going to use it against me. So it's really hard, and I don't have any of the answers, but I feel like very privileged to be sat amongst 4 people who are doing it. And it's a really, really positive thing for the industry. I hope it leaks out into some other industries as well. My sister-in-law works in the legal industry, and it's not good there. Like we're nailing it in engineering for diversity compared to over there. Am I going to get in trouble for this? I don't know. But yeah, it's I'm so happy that I've had a squiggly career, and I am very, very, very happy that I'm now in an industry which allows me to stay squiggly. And I think the most important thing that I've learned is that it takes a lot of time, and you have to dedicate that time to figuring out what good looks like for you. Like, you're not gonna, just because you apply for a company and you get a place and they've got like amazing things to include everyone or amazing learning and development, still doesn't mean it's going to be right for you. You've got to figure out what that is. I'm on the precipice now of I'm like, should I go and work for this very normal fintech, or shall I go and start a macrame business which interlaces fiber arts with Internet of Things? I don't know. I'll let you know on Tuesday. And it's okay, because there's support and there's love for like both of those things in this industry, and it's amazing. But it's not. I'm not saying it's very easy. Like, there's still people who will be like, "Excuse me." It's like, whatever. I wake up and I'm happy. So it's really hard, is what I'm saying, and it is up to us, especially as people perhaps earlier in the pipeline, and right from the beginning, to have the confidence to say, this is who I am. I'm not. I want to learn and I want to keep growing, but I cannot change who I am as a person, and I'm not going to do that for a company. It's really important, and why would you? Like, you're amazing. Sorry.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
I think it's really important what you mentioned about having a squiggly career and a squiggly background, because for so many years in tech, there was this preconceived notion that you have to have a certain degree and you have to have gone through this career path before you can get into a job that looks like, a job that you think you want to do. And I've always been on the side of, that's nonsense, right? So, I have a computer science degree. I'm sure we've never met before, because I've spent about 2 decades and a half as well, started off doing Java and all of that. But really, when I look back on my career and I look about my experiences and I think about the awesome people that I've worked with, the people who were at the top of their game, it wasn't people who had that path. It was people who brought themselves and all the skills and experiences that they had accumulated from all these other roles. And that's what made, what they were doing successful. Yeah. Because tech and being an engineer is more than just writing the code. I say this all the time. The code can only take you so far. You can be the best code writer out there, but if you don't have the other skills to be able to manage your stakeholders, to be able to speak up for what you believe in, to be able to do what you do with empathy, with the right ethics, then you're not that great a coder. You're just typing in things into a keyboard.
So quickly, when I was doing the R&D for that new curriculum, the first thing you asked, like, hey, what do you want people to be able to do on day one? Or what do you struggle to find people are able to do? There's a million places teaching how to teach this tech, that tech. Communication with stakeholders was the number one thing. Like, we're really struggling to find people who have the confidence to be able to take that into a room and talk to a client. It's go speak somewhere. It might suck the first time you do it, but just go and do it. Speak to people. And also, you asked, I didn't answer your actual question, which is about transferable skills. There's tons of transferable skills, but I think the most important one is humility. I have got more and more humble as I've gone along, and every little nugget of humility I get, I can learn something else, and I just find out something new, and that shoots me up further. So that's the biggest one.
No, I actually agree with your sentiments with respect to bringing your whole self to work, as you've put it before, okay? And we all have our own personal experiences. We all have our own unique experiences, and we should be able to factor those into the work that we do. And in addition to that, it's not changing yourself for a company or changing yourself for a job or changing yourself for a position, mostly because you've already got thousands of people in that tech sphere who already fit that particular mold. That's not what you're bringing. You're bringing your own personal experiences. And I think one of the most important things I'll say to people who are sitting in the audience now is, if you do attempt to join technology, most times, or in most cases, companies aren't necessarily looking for someone who has that computer science degree or who has that depth of knowledge or who knows exactly what they're doing from day one. They're simply looking for people who can learn. And they're looking for people who are humble enough to realize and to accept that, hey, one, I don't know everything. Two, I am able to learn from the amazing people around me, regardless of what their background is. Because I at work have people who you know, they deal with particle physics, and they've got backgrounds in biomechanical engineering and all of these things. And I can still pick up examples from them, or I can still learn quite a bit from them, regardless of the fact that they're not steeped or rooted in technology. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about having this squiggly career and being part of an industry as diverse as this. Go on.
Leo, I just wanted to jump in very quickly, because I think it's really important when you're on a panel talking about diversity, is that diversity comes in all sorts of forms, that you can't pigeonhole anybody into any one form. So technology is a huge field. So in some roles, you do need to be very outspoken and speak to stakeholders. Not everybody in technology needs to be that person who's going to do presentation and speak to stakeholders. Some people can go very, very deep into their technology and have a great career, and you're a fantastic member of the team. And then there are other people who might be a bit more broader. So it's really important that whatever you feel you can bring to the table, there's going to be the right role and company for you. And even in some companies might have a culture that is very flamboyant and outward looking, consulting, marketing, things like that. Even that is a stereotype. And some other companies are like, no, our focus is the technology itself. We go deep. And that's the type of character that we want, is somebody who may be a bit more insular, want to go deeper. So it's really important that sometimes it is really important to understand the breadth of things that are capable. But one thing I've learned in my career is I'm not fit for every company. You know, my character, my skills, my capabilities is not for every company. But where there are many companies that I would fit, and I do fit for it really, really well. And I'd say the same would be for all of you too.
Thank you very much. Shyam, we're moving on to Redkite.
Yes.
Did I get it right? Yes. So, Director of Engineering at Redkite. What approaches are Redkite trying out to effectively increase diversity of its talent and to improve that pipeline, as we mentioned?
Yeah, quite a bit. And I think a lot of it has been fueled by our growth, and the other half has been fueled by just being a consultancy. So naturally, what we're doing is we're working with customers, helping them with their data, using technology to make better decisions. But what we don't know is where will the customer be based, right? Different geographies, different sectors, our stakeholders. There's just diversity in kind of who we engage with. And then for Redkite to be successful as a company and help our customers, we need that same diversity in the organization, right? And that's not just gender, ethnicity, culture. It's also diversity and experience, right? Like, so in Redkite, we have, pilots, military personnel, medical professionals. And so, when we've got a problem, having those different perspectives into the problem as an input, you're going to have the best solution for our clients. That's ultimately what drives our need kind of for a diverse workforce. One of the biggest initiatives we've done is about a year ago, we set up what's called the Redkite Academy. We're quite specific in the name. It wasn't a graduate program. It was for those who wanted a career in data, career changes, career switches, and we knew the size we're at. We're growing, but we don't have these dedicated teams, so we had to partner. So we partnered with Code First Girls, maybe some people have heard, and Generation.org. Kind of more non-traditional backgrounds, and Code First Girls was giving an opportunity for women in tech. So we sponsor X number of courses every year. We've had our first cohort start in January. So they go through a 3-month training program with Code First Girls. They then join Redkite, and we've developed also a 3-month industry-specific course. So we'll teach them cloud, CI/CD, DevOps, engineering, building up. So if this is Code First Girls, and then this is what our clients expect, we're trying to kind of narrow the gradient kind of so that it feels a little bit more natural when they start. In terms of tools and technology, I think it was mentioned earlier, we are using Applied, which is a recruitment platform that anonymizes the recruitment process. And also one thing that we've done, we are hiring into engineering fields, so we want to make sure that, not any specific language, but we're able to think, like an engineer. And I remember my first graduate interview, they gave me a coding assessment, closed the door, left me some water. I was sweating, wrote a bunch of code that made no sense, didn't answer the question, and thankfully I didn't get the job. So what we've done is we have what we call a code review. So we let the candidate take the exercise home. At the end of the interview process, we come back, and I'm sure, you know, at some point, or we're already doing code reviews, right? It's a collaborative process. And so part of our interview then is that it's a collaborative code review. There's no wrong or right answers. There's no expectations. But, you know, just like when I was interviewing as a pilot, can I sit next to this person for 10 hours? You know, it's the same in, you know, in software. You know, can I do a code review with this person? Because we're going to need to do it 100 times. You know, are they defensive? You know, are they pushing back? And I think, again, having that diverse workforce means that we're having all those inputs. You know, we have minimum 2-3 reviews per code review. Having that different perspective go in definitely helps us. And, you know, there's that example where someone built a summation app, and all the friends were like high-fiving each other. 10 add 10 equals 20, 20 add 20 equals 20. They gave it to their mum. She writes TEEN, and it goes, not a number exception, right? And so again, just kind of not having that kind of thought into UX, UI, design, it's what's going to make us successful as a company at Redkite. And so where our hope is that at least 50% going forward of Redkite will be coming through the academy. It's a big bet for us at the moment, and one that we know will pay off.
Thank you very much. That sounds absolutely phenomenal. Any thoughts, anyone? Oh no,
Could I'm talking a bit much here. One of the challenges, and I think this is just for those of you at the early parts of your career, because it's something that we experienced that we just weren't expecting, and it's to do with if you're going into a progressive business like a Redkite, like a SimplyBusiness or a 10x, where you are trying to build the pipeline, what you tend to see then is all the diversity is in the lower ranks of the organization, right? And that can build a discomfort in and of itself. So even though it's the right thing, right? So the business is trying to build a pipeline, as the person in that situation, it can be quite uncomfortable because you look around and say, oh, all the junior engineers are women. And all the senior engineers are men. And all the heads of engineering are men, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we had that problem, and we weren't expecting it because we thought, oh, we're doing a good thing, things are changing, the demographic is moving. But we had to realize, oh, actually, this is creating a different type of problem, right? As you're building a pipeline, you end up with a kind of skewed organization. So we had to do different types of training for our organization to help them understand what we were trying to do and what that progression model. But it was just a word of encouragement for those of you at that early stage of your careers. If you are going into a progressive company, trust me, it's better than going into a non-progressive one and you're the only one, right? and there's no one around like you. But it is a thing. And for those businesses who are doing it, we do recognize, actually, by creating this pipeline effect, there's always a beginning. We're 5 years in, and so we have got women and other groups, LGBT, black individuals throughout our organization now, but that wasn't always the case, right? So it does take a bit of time. If you find the right company, have a little bit of patience, keep pushing. So I'm not saying don't keep asking the question and keep pushing, but that is a part of growing the pipeline.
Thank you very much. Cherril, on to you. Finally. So we've got, you're a company with over 4,000 engineers, 4,000 engineers performing a massive variety of tasks, as you said, developing IP for customers such as Apple and such as Samsung. What are some of the challenges that you have fostering that diverse workplace of so many people, and how do you tackle those challenges?
Thank you, Leo. Where to start? So, I mean, Hasani's talked about it. Technology is terrible, really, in terms of the diversity advancement. It is behind the curve, and that's global. So it's no news that we have challenges at ARM. However, there is some good news, which is we've identified that we've got some challenges at ARM, and we've, for the last few years, we've had a CDO start, a Chief Diversity Officer, put in a diversity program, and I'm part of that team. What are the challenges? Okay, so our engineers are engineers, and they are data-driven. So we've talked about data. So there's two key challenges for us. One is they don't believe the data. You need to show me, Cherril, why we need to do DEI. I don't understand. I don't believe it when you tell me that we're not doing well. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is they need to understand the why. Why do DEI? It's not just, it's the, it's the compelling, there's no compelling reason for them. For us, it's the right thing to do. It's, imperative that we do this socially and as a business. But I think for some of the engineers, they really need to understand why. And so we spent really a lot of time in trying to elevate why DEI is important. We spent some time talking about, you've probably all seen data. I'm sure you've all been privy to it. But actually, why do we have diverse teams? Well, diverse teams are, if you've got mixed teams of diverse people, loads and loads of data. So we showed them the data. We brought people in to talk about the data. And loads of studies show that, diverse teams, are going to perform better. And I think you talked about it at 10X earlier. It's part of your DEI governance structure. So you get higher performance. They can solve problems more. They can be more analytical. They can come to solutions in a faster way. So definitely diverse teams. It's proving that. It's talking about it, and it's giving them the data to look at. But then we also need to think about the people outcomes. Okay, so you've got your diverse teams, but actually what we want to see is talent retention. We want to see people performing. So we've talked about it, I want to be seen, I want to be heard, I want to feel included when I come to work. I want to feel like I'm, a part of the organization and I can thrive. And being your authentic self, being able to do what you want to do and what you need to do, and not feel that you're covering and it's tiring. It's tiring coming into work and having to be somebody different. So really giving, we've got 7 employee groups, and we've used those groups to help us to elevate those conversations, to talk about personal stories, to help people understand what it means to come in and not feel like you belong and not feel included. So it's been a lot of work in terms of talking about, okay, diverse teams, important. People and people outcomes important. And if you have diverse teams and you have people who feel that they can thrive and that they can succeed at your organization, you're going to get better business outcomes. You're going to perform better. You're going to have better revenue and profitability. So giving those data points of actually it does work, it has helped our engineering community come to terms with that. So it's about doing good, but doing well as well as a company. Both are important. So we've spent quite a bit of time trying to elevate and have those discussions. We've used external partners like the Neuro Leadership Institute, and we've done work with them on psychological safety. Because psychological safety is really important. Can I speak up? Can I challenge? Can I really show up here? It's all right everyone saying, yeah, everyone's involved, everyone's included, but it's actually a real challenge for some people. And we've done a lot of work on neuroscience of inclusion. So we've used neuroscientists, data scientists, to help explain to our communities about what it means to be inclusive and how that changes your brain and how your brain thinks. And so all of that work has really been around elevating diversity, equity, and inclusion, telling the story, giving the narrative, making sure they have the compelling why. Now we've been doing that for 1.5 years, 2 years. Lots of work, lots of listening, lots of talking. And now we're in for DEI to be sustainable, it needs to be systemic and it needs to be integrative. So it has to be in your processes and procedures and your day-to-day actions. It's not something you do on Tuesday, once a month, in your one-to-one and tick a box. I've done my DEI. It's something that you do. We want our people to come into work and feel like they are heard and seen and that they can contribute. And that's not, it might seem not a lot for us to ask for, but for some people it's really challenging to get that. So some of the things we have done is work on that, and the next phase is really about now embedding. So as I say, making it integrative. And that really will take us looking at those processes and procedures, our talent management, talent acquisition, data, Because we do have data, but we don't have it's not great. Like you said, it's, not everybody, it's voluntary. The only place really it's mandatory is in the US, where ethnicity data is mandatorily reported. Everywhere else it's voluntary, and in some countries it's illegal to ask for it, like France or the Nordics. So we have to be very careful about, just show me the data. We have to tread carefully and do that program of work. And actually, what we're thinking now is anonymized data is probably easier to collect. People feel less threatened. It's a psychological safety. If I give you my data, what are you going to do with it? So when I come from, I'm having a promotional discussion, are you going to throw that data back in my face? So it's really gaining that trust, psychological safety, people giving their data, because we want to promote. This is what we'll do with the data. We'll think about our policies. We'll think about our career paths and our progression paths for certain demographics. We will help you. We'll think about our reward packages. We'll think about the policies and procedures that we have that will help you. And it's really building that case. So in answer to your question, because I'm blabbering on, there's a lot of reasons why there are challenges in the tech space for DE&I. The work is ongoing. ARM's been 32 years. We've been a company. 32 years it's taken us to get to where we are. We're not going to solve DEI in 2. And that's the message we say to people when they go, it's so slow. When is it happening? Where are all the women? Where are all the black people? It's like, it's tiring, but it's going to take time.
It's ongoing. Thank you. Do we have time for some questions, Kimberly?
Yes. We've had one from...
Oh, yes. We'll take the mic. I'll also do a run around the audience as well.
No, I can run around. So we've had a question from the virtual audience. What advice do you have for those coming from a non-traditional tech background, i.e., self-learning and through that way? What advice?
I might be able to answer this one a little bit. I think we touched upon it. Even my background's more in traditional computer science, but if I take the data world, for example, it's a relatively new space to engineering. It's kind of caught up, but what you'll see now as things move towards the cloud, the Azures, AWS, Google Clouds, information, certification, training, it's becoming far more available, the data camps, the 360 learning platform. So compared to 10 years ago, where you had to buy a C++ book or something, sit down, and maybe Stack Overflow could maybe answer the questions for you. Now there are communities like this, there's lots of online materials, actually self-learning. And, when I look across our organization in data engineering, I think we're about 50-50 from traditional tech background and completely, adjacent kind of fields. And what we've seen is combining the two, we actually come up with some of the best solutions. So I think the barrier to entry nowadays is definitely, it's not completely gone, but it's reduced just with how much information is available to us, I would say.
I will say, we're going to take some questions from the audience, so stick your hand up. However, couple of rules. First, ask your question and then add some context, and please direct it to a particular panel member as we do not have much time. I am going to take this lovely person at the back. I'll be right back. I'm going to take this lovely person at the back. No, genuinely, this is the best bit of the talk.
I didn't run out. I do not remember any of the panelists' names. I am so sorry. My question is directed at the first person. Well, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, thank you. So you said that people early in their careers who are joining organizations early in the pipeline of improving diversity, that you should have some grace for them, because it might seem that it's a very junior level, and obviously the seniors and so you work with are not diverse. If you are in a position like that and you don't feel you're fully comfortable with that environment, it's not that they're making it unsafe, but you're not feeling comfortable. What ways have your organization changed to make people feel comfortable in those positions as they slowly progress in their career, and obviously the diversity kind of moves up the seniority level?
Great question. So let me just rephrase. I don't think you should give the company grace, because they're not doing you a favor. You've got a job because you're qualified for that job. It was just to go in understanding that is the dynamic. Now, what we've done at SB, I think some of the other colleagues here have touched on it, are those network groups. So I would say for the people who are going in, and I'm in an environment and I'm a minority, those companies that take this seriously will have network groups. So we have the BDN, the Black Diversity Network. There's the Women's Network as well. There's the LGBTQ network. So there's a number of networks. There's a Southern Asian network as well. So we've got a number of different networks. So I would say plug into those. And then finally, I would hope most of those companies, and Shyam talked about their academy. I mentioned mentorship earlier on. I think mentorship is the one thing that in my career I regret I didn't have earlier on. Get a mentor. And that mentor is somebody that you can talk to, have a moan at, and just say, Hasani said all this stuff, it's not moving fast enough. What do you think about this? And you can have that dialogue and, you know, get a bit of that mental health venting benefit as well. So join the networks, mentoring. It's not about giving grace to a company. It's not a favour.
Lovely. Any other questions?
Let me add one more thing to that, actually.
Oh, go on.
One other thing that you can, and I completely agree with everything you said. I was going to mention mentoring if it hadn't. But one other thing that you can look at when you're in that situation or in an organization that's going through that phase is try to understand what a career path looks for you within that organization. So yes, the organization might be going through that phase, but myself as an individual, do I see a clear progression path for myself? Does the company make it easy for me to see where I could be in a year's time, or in 2 years' time, or in 3 years' time? And that's what allows you to go, actually, yeah, we're all kind of in that bucket today, but we're not going to be here all the time. At 10X, we implemented that, I think, 9 months ago, where we have a clear pathway that you can, in your conversations with your line manager, in your conversations with your coach or your mentor, you can go, here are the skills I need to build to get to the next level, and these are the things I need to work on to get to the next level. Because that's how, from bottom up, we begin to diversify the ranks across the organization.
Lovely. Any other questions at all? Oh, we got a person in the front.
Hi, thank you. So I noticed a number of the panelists mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think generally people in the audience are going to have a really good understanding on diversity and inclusion. But equity is always a slightly vaguer area. I think I've got a bit of an understanding of it, but I'd be interested to hear more from the panelists exactly what favourable, equitable practices involves.
Should we show them what equity means? Who have you got? Stand up. Let's do it. So you stand down there. I take my shoes off. You stand there. You stand there. Okay. Actually, no. If you all actually, if you get here. So we're all on this equal platform. It's the equal height. But can we all see the same thing? No, because I'm taller. Hasani's definitely taller, so he can see right at the back. So to make it equitable, if we give you a step, maybe a better step, then we can all see the same. So equity is about not being equal, we're all equally on the stage, but somebody needs a lift up, somebody might need a little bit of a hand, a helping hand, to get to progress, for whatever reason. So equity is slightly different from being equality, which is everyone's given an equal chance, but some people need more, because they might be shorter, or they might have a learning difficulty, or they might, if you think about, a good example is if somebody's dyslexic, they might get an extra 30 minutes for their exam, more so than everybody else who's taking the exam, because they need some equity to help them to achieve the same outcome. Does that help?
That's amazing.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say we have come to time. If you do have a question and I wasn't able to run to you, I apologise. I would have loved that exercise. Thank you so much to our phenomenal panellists, Hasani, Oge, Beth, Shyam, and Cherril. And enjoy the next session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.